The April Fusion has launched. Now, I'm a little bit behind on my video schedule, so in today's video, I'm going to give you a 2-for-1. In the first half of today's video, I'm going to review the two champions, both the legendary champion Lysanthair Beastbane and the epic in the Fusion Yuzan the Marooned, for those of you who may be looking for a consolation prize. And then in the second half of the video, I'm going to give you my no-fail fusion plan. We're going to break down the calendar and show you the best way to complete this fusion. I am Colred. This is Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. Let's get started. Just a quick reminder, I am giving away my 2025 Hell Hades free-to-play challenge account, and I'm doing it tonight. Now, I think this is a great account. I think it's got a really interesting roster. It's poised for a lot of progress. I think somebody's going to have a lot of fun with it. Now, if you are interested in picking up the account, all you have to do is be a member of my Discord community, come into the server, scroll down till you see the special events section. There's a new channel called Account Giveaway. You go to the second message here, click on Add Reaction, and just add any reaction you like. You can add as many reactions as you like. You'll only be entered once. And then sometime tonight, I will be live streaming between probably somewhere around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will start my live stream. I don't really know what my schedule looks like tonight. And then during that live stream, I'm going to go over the entire account. I'm going to run through all of my teams, all of my builds, all of the champions. I'm going to give, an explanation of what I was planning to do because I was looking to progress past this point. So, stuff like Clan Boss and Hydra and your next 6 stars and all of those things. Now, of course, you can make your own decisions if you win the account, but I wanted to make sure that the roadmap was laid out for anybody who is interested. It may also be interesting to those of you who are running new or mid-game accounts, or if you just like hearing about how people build their accounts. There could be some nuggets there for you as well. So please join me. I will announce the live stream here in my Discord as well. So if you're a member of the Discord, hopefully you'll get the announcement. Now, once you win, I will DM you here in Discord. We'll exchange information, and I'll try to transfer the account as quickly as possible, just in case you are interested in pursuing this fusion. Now, don't worry, it just started today. If you start it tomorrow, you're going to be in total good shape, right? You don't need to rush this, but I want to make sure that we don't wait too long because also I don't want to play it every day. I want to get this off my hands. I have been playing it. I've been keeping it up. So it is in a good position to pursue this fusion if you're interested. All right, so that is all of the information about the Hell Hades free-to-play challenge account. Now let's get back to the video. Let's start with the fusion epic Yuzan the Marooned. As you can see, he is another void epic. That's a trend we have been seeing with both hybrid fusions and classic fusions recently. This one is an HP-based champion from the Skinwalkers faction, and he's a rhino. He's a cool-looking rhino. So I definitely like the character design. Now, taking a look at his base stats, you can see his HP pool is 20k. That's a good amount. That's not overwhelming. It's not the highest we've seen on an epic, but this is certainly a good HP pool for an HP-based champion. And you mix in the 1266 defense, I think this guy is going to be very tanky. His base speed is respectable at 97. He's not fast, but he's not slow. You're not going to have a lot of trouble building him up to a reasonable speed. And then finally, he's got 45 resistance in his base stats. And this is going to be relevant. We're going to talk more about this as we go. But that's a nice number. We don't usually see a number that large, just in the base stats for most champions. Now, taking a look at his skills, his A1 is called Hammerhorn. This attacks one enemy, transfers a random debuff from this champion to the target, and then heals this champion by 10% of their max HP. Now, that is a massive heal on the A1. 10% of his max HP. Obviously, he's going to have a big HP pool. So this is going to be a lot of healing. I'm already thinking potential solo champion. Anybody who's got a lot of sustain in their kit, anybody who's inherently tanky, has the opportunity to maybe be a solo champion. Now, I do want to talk about this transfers a random debuff from this champion to the target. I don't have a lot of champions built that utilize this kind of skill frequently, but one champion that I've used is Sanguinia from the Sacred Order faction. And the way her skill works is transfer isn't really like a single ability. It's two halves that are put together. There are two different abilities that are combined. The first is a debuff cleanse. So she cleanses debuffs from herself. And then she has to apply those debuffs to the target. So the cleanse doesn't take accuracy, but the application does. So if this works the way her skill works, this would be the only thing in his kit that requires accuracy. So you want to consider whether or not you want to put that into his, build when you get this champion going. All right, now let's take a look at the A2. Thundering Charge attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance when booked of removing 2 random buffs from all enemies. This actually makes him viable for things like PvP and Siege. Of course, you do have to watch out for Polymorph because this is not a duration reduction skill, which doesn't trigger Polymorph. This is a straight removal, which would trigger Polymorph, so be aware of that. But it's a 100% chance of removing 2 random buffs. That's really nice. And then heals this champion by 10% of their max HP for each buff removed by this skill. That's massive self-healing. There are great, PvE situations where this would be extremely helpful. I'm thinking like Agrath, right? In the Doom Tower. There are other, PvE bosses and stuff, other fights where this would be valuable. But so this could be a lot of sustain. However, it looks like it's no heal. It is no heal if there are no buffs removed. So buffs must be removed, but it could be up to 100% heal. And that's massive. And as you can see, this is on a 3-turn cooldown. Now, I don't expect it to hit really hard because it's an HP-based champion, but might have decent multipliers, could do a little bit of damage as well. Now, the A3 Good Luck Charm removes 1 random debuff from all allies, then heals all allies by 20% of this champion's max HP, and places a block debuffs buff on all allies for 2 turns. This is on a 4-turn cooldown. This is an extremely good skill. This is a cleanse with a heal and a block debuffs for 2 turns. This could be used in a lot of places. Now, I'm already thinking about this guy in Clan Boss, right? Because removing 1 random debuff from all allies could be a way to remove the slow from Spirit Affinity Boss, right? And then the block debuffs could block the stun, right? So this could be a guy that makes your Clan Boss team affinity friendly. He's not going to bring a ton of damage, but if you don't have a unkillable team, he's going to provide a lot of healing because he's going to heal all allies by 20% of his HP. He's got a nice HP pool there. And then if you look at his passive, whenever he heals himself, he also heals all allies by 20% of any surplus heal. So that means his A1 could heal his whole team. His A2 could heal his whole team. And then his A3 can heal his whole team. So you've got literally every skill healing the whole team, although this is going to be the big heal. So interesting champion, because I'm thinking solo champion, absolutely. He's got a ton of self-sustain. And then Clan Boss champion, yeah, absolutely. He's got this cleanse and block debuffs and heal here. So definitely an interesting. He's also Void Affinity. There are maybe 10 really good soloing epics in the game, and the vast majority of them are not Void Affinity. So I think this guy's value is actually very high, although probably for like a mid-game account. I don't think an end-game account is going to find any value in this guy outside of maybe just a fun solo champion that could solo, he could probably solo Ice Golem. He could probably solo Dragon. He could probably solo some Doom Tower bosses. I'm not sure about Bommel. It'd be interesting to see if he could. Yeah, I don't know if he could do Bommel. But then finally, we've also got this aura, increases ally resistance in all battles by 40. This is actually really important because if he is a solo champion, you put him in the lead, he's got the 40 resistance from his aura, and then he's got 45 resistance in his stats. So one of the difficulties of building a solo champion is getting enough resist on them to resist things like stuns, right? So he's going to be a lot easier to build with the required resistance for a solo champion. And again, Void Affinity, so you don't have to worry about, taking extra damage from any affinity out there. And obviously he doesn't weak hit, although the only thing he could weak hit on it would be his A1. So yeah, I really am interested in this champion. I think he's pretty cool. And hopefully some people out there get him as a consolation prize. You might even be able to get 2 or 3 copies of him. So you could empower him or, use the extra copies as epic tomes, whatever you want to do. All right, now let's take a look at Lysanthair, who is the legendary fusion champion. We'll see if he's actually better here than Yuzan the Marooned. Here he is, Lysanthair Beastbane. He is a Spirit Affinity defensive-based champion in the High Elves faction. I like this character model. I think he's definitely a High Elf, you can see, but he's not really biting off anybody else. It's cool to see a High Elf come in It feels a little bit unique, a bit different than the other high elves we've seen, in the past. For a while, it felt really copy and paste and cookie cutter here in this faction. But I think the last couple of new high elves have upped their game a little bit. I like Prisma here. This skin is pretty cool. Definitely Lysanthair. Yeah, I like these champions. Good job, Raid, on the aesthetic here. Now, taking a look at the base stats, we've got 18,000 HP. So we had an HP-based epic with 20,000 HP. Here we've got a defense-based legendary with less HP, 18,000. It's not a little bit of HP. It's still decent, especially when you consider the 1542 defensive number. That's a high defensive number for a defensive-based champion. Not super high for like a legendary defensive-based champion, but really respectable. And I think the combination of the two is going to make Lysanthair very tanky. Nice speed, very respectable at 103, so on the faster side. A little bit of resistance. Again, see, I was saying the 45 resistance is pretty high on the epic. And here we've got 10 accuracy. We'll see how much accuracy he actually needs. So this is a defensive-based champion here. And we've got a hex symbol there. Isn't that the hex symbol? Let's see. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Echo Bolt, it is called. The first hit has a 100% chance to place a hex debuff on the target for 2 turns. Places an increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. Okay. All right, so increased crit damage is not bad. With that high defense, maybe he'll hit pretty hard. It's been a while since we've got a really good defensive-based damage dealer. As much as I can think of, it's been, maybe 6 months to a year since we've got another really good defensive-based damage dealer. Maybe I'm missing somebody. Let me know in the comments. The A2 attacks one enemy 2 times as well. Has a 20% chance of repeating the attack. Okay, this is on a 3-turn cooldown. See, this is the way you do damage books. 1 book, 20%. That's the way you do it. Let's keep this going. This is so much better than 5, 5, 5, 5. Like, even 10% is better than the 5, 5, 5, 5. Let's make it a real damage boost when you put a book on. When this champion counterattacks or teams up with allies to join an attack, we'll use this skill instead of their default skill. The damage inflicted with this skill increases by 10% each time an ally is devoured. Well, that only happens in Hydra. So this boost is specifically in Hydra. Now, this is interesting because this becomes the counterattack skill instead of this. But this has the chance of landing Hex. This has the increased crit damage buff. So it's almost like the A1 would be better. I'm assuming the A2 hits significantly harder. That would make sense, right? And then, of course, you've got the boost in Hydra. So it could be a pretty good Hydra damage dealer. And if you're talking about counterattacks or ally attacks, then potentially he could be a good Hydra head killer. He could be, one of those that picks out a head and just nukes him out. The A3 attacks all enemies 2 times. Each hit has a 100% chance of placing the big decreased speed debuff and the big weaken for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. If the target is under a hex debuff, places these debuffs before attacking, which would be nice because then you get the weaken out there before attacking. Okay, so I don't think he's going to be a great hex champion, but at least you have the opportunity to get a hex out there. Maybe if you have a debuff spread skill. I don't think he does. Doesn't look like he does. But okay, so now I wouldn't consider this guy a hex champion, but this skill is actually really good because decreased speed is incredibly valuable. It's one of the most valuable debuffs in the entire game. You need it against every boss who can be slowed. You want them slowed. Obviously, you want it in Hydra. We already know that he's got extra abilities in Hydra. And then you've got that weaken on top of it. So this is great for wave content, right? It doesn't have to be Hydra. This could be any wave content. This is going to be an incredibly powerful skill. Plus, it attacks all enemies 2 times, which is really nice. And you may ask yourself, why do you have a 2-hitter, double hitter, where each hit has a 100% chance of placing a debuff? That's because each hit is rolled separately in terms of a weak hit. So if the first hit weak hits, but the second one doesn't, you're actually getting 2 chances to place that debuff. So it's a little bit affinity friendly to have an ability like this. I like this ability. I think this is fantastic. All right, now let's look at the passive will ignore life barrier and ally protection buffs. Well, that's nice, I guess, to ignore life barrier. makes it a little bit easier to, again, free your devoured teammates in Hydra, especially if you use that A2. So I do think this guy's specialty is going to be freeing your other champions when they are devoured in Hydra. And again, okay, so that passive, plus this increases this champion's defense by 5% for each active buff on this champion, stacks up to 50%. So you could get this guy's defense really, really high. He's already got a high base number. That's 50%. And, you know, you're probably going to have an increased defense as one of the buffs. So you're looking at a massive defensive number. So this guy may hit very, very hard, especially when he's got that increased crit damage buff up. So I think this guy is going to be pretty solid for Hydra. I don't know about endgame Hydra. Like, I don't know if this is really the kind of champion that you would build into an endgame Hydra team, but it does feel like a really good early game or mid game Hydra champion that you'll use for a long time. And like I said, I think that wave-based skill on the A3 is extremely valuable everywhere. This is good against bosses. This is good against waves. It's good against Hydra, obviously. But this could be used in Doom Tower. This could be used, obviously, in Faction Crypts. Could be used against Iron Twins. If you don't have a decreased speed champion, you're going to want this guy against Iron Twins. And that's pretty solid as well. I like this guy. I would say he's probably a solid A champion. I don't think he's an S tier champion, but I think he's a solid A tier champion. On my Hell Hades challenge account that I'm giving away, I would actually recommend going for this guy. If I was still playing that account, I would probably go for this guy. Because one thing that account is missing is a decreased speed. I have weakened from a couple of sources, but I don't have a decreased speed. And with all the supports that I have on that account, with, you know, I've got Tagore, obviously, there's Dawncaller Sabbatha, Rector Drath, you know, so there are all of these healers and support champions there. I think this guy would fit really well into that team and potentially provide a ton of value in a lot of locations. Yeah, I like him. He's also got to increase his allied defense in all battles by 28%. Really nice. So solid champion, not a must fuse by any means, but I do think that if you are a mid-game player, you should certainly consider this. Even if this guy was going to be your first fusion, I think it would be a very good first fusion. I think he would be a great first fusion, actually. And if he's your second or third, he probably adds something to your roster as well. Okay, so those are the champions, both really good champions. So I think if you can't go for Lysanthair, you've got a really good consolation prize. If you can go for Lysanthair, consider it. Consider it. All right, now let's go ahead and start our no-fail fusion plan. So we're going to take a look at the calendar. There have been some changes. It'll be a little bit tricky, but we're going to make it work. Just a quick plug here before we look at the fusion calendar from Plarium. This is the new fusion planner tracker. What's it called? Let's see. It is called the Fusion Planner Calendar from fastidious.gg. Now, I will include a link to this in the description of this video, but you can see it's basically just fastidious.gg/raid/calendar. Now, Fastidious told me that the new fusion will probably populate in about 48 hours from the time it launched. That's because they haven't done a hybrid fusion calendar yet, so they've got to do a couple of tweaks on the back end, and then this will update. So this is currently showing last month's fusion, but it will update in the next 24 to 48 hours. So if you want a little bit of help tracking your calendar, which when we get to my fusion no-fail fusion plan, you're going to see there's some, it's complex, right? It's complex, especially if you haven't done this before. Basically, you can come here and work your way through this, and it will track a lot of the information for you. You have to enter the information manually. It doesn't pull the information from the game, but this can replace a, pen and paper system, or if you don't have any system at all, this could be the first system that you use. I'm going to be using it. I'm actually really excited about this tool. We just did a video on it yesterday or the day before, so you can go ahead and watch that if you're interested in more details about this Fusion Calendar Planner. So thanks to Fastidious for this. I'm excited to use it. But again, in about 48 hours, we'll check it out. Okay, so here is the official calendar. There are tournaments with 175, events with 175, Heroes Path with champion fragments 50, and then extra fragments 50 from that Heroes Path for a total of 450, of which you need 400. So you can give away 50 potential fragments. Now, basically, I want to talk about this because Plarium has changed their approach to fusions over the past several months. So the pattern that we had for the 18 months prior was really consistent. And now they're changing it up. They're changing the starting days of, they're not starting on Thursdays every fusion. Now they're starting on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So they're messing with the weekly schedule, which I don't know. I think that's okay. I guess I don't care that much. I'd prefer it was predictable because they don't give us this information in advance, but it is what it is. And then they're constantly throwing in things like heroes paths. That's really common, getting a heroes path within a fusion recently. And as you can see, all 50 bonus fragments are here in this heroes path, and it's at the end of the fusion event. Not the exact end, but towards the back end. Now, there are advantages to this, and there are disadvantages to this. One of the things about this particular hero's path is I think it's relatively friendly. But there is one thing about it which is unfriendly. It replaces a champion chase. And as you can see here, they're actually telling us what the hero's path is going to be. This is the first time they've done this, although we could have guessed because we're missing a dungeon divers and we're missing a champion chase. So obviously it's going to be, champion related and dungeon diving related. So they're telling us what it is. But by removing a champion chase, they're basically replacing a champion chase with a summon rush. So we have 2 summon rushes in this event calendar. And that means fragment champions aren't going to help you, right? This is a hybrid fusion where you could summon these epics during a champion chase and get points for them, but they're not letting us do that this time. So that is decidedly unfriendly. The things that are friendly about it is, one, it's at the end, and so having the bonus fragments at the end can be nice in some ways for some people, because that means like if you messed up somewhere along the line, you have an opportunity at the end, even if it is with summoned champions. I think the other friendly aspect is there's a potential to get, if you just need the first 50 fragments, there's a potential to get most of that through dungeon diving, right? You're going to be doing an ice golem tournament anyway. Maybe you're going to be doing, let's see, does it overlap anything else? No, it's basically an ice golem tournament. Maybe you're going to be doing some, no, it's ice golem tournament. That's all it is. Unfortunately, not super friendly, but you'll get some points at least from the dungeon diving aspect, and you could decide to use more energy in order to save yourself some shards. So if you have a lot of gems, if you have a lot of energy, but you don't have a lot of shards, you might still be able to get these extra 50 fragments here, or at least the first 50 fragments without pulling too many shards. So, like I said, there's some advantages, there's some disadvantages. Overall, I don't love it. I don't love these changes because it's harder to plan around and they don't give us enough information. But it feels like they're starting to give us a little bit more information. And the more that we see this, the more we'll know how to anticipate exactly what's happening. So I wanted to get that out of the way. At first, we do have 2 summon rushes here. The other thing about this first summon rush is there are only 25 fragments. There isn't a second batch of fragments here. So I expect it to just be at like 3,000 points or 3,100 points. So this is going to be 6 sacreds. And that means this one's probably going to be somewhere around like 7 sacreds, because they tend to raise the points on the hero's path a little bit because they have a second way for you to get points. But because they got rid of the champion chase, maybe it won't be. Maybe it'll only be 6 sacreds. But I'm going to call it 7 for now. I'm expecting this to be 13 sacreds instead of the 11 that we had like 6 months ago. There's always inflation. So let's call it 13 sacreds worth. Or obviously you can use other shards, but I don't recommend it. I say, mystery shards and sacred shards is what you want to use here. Okay, now let's look at the actual dates. Today is Monday the 7th. You shouldn't be doing anything today, really. If you wanted to, you could start with some champion training. I would do campaign. I would just stick in campaign, but I really wouldn't start anything until the Dungeon Divers event goes live. So for right now, start saving your resources. Obviously play the game, get your quests done and stuff like that, your dailies. But wait for this Dungeon Divers event to start, and then go ahead and do your spider tournament and your champion training. Again, this is a good one to do a lot of campaign in early on if you have the energy. If you would prefer to overshoot on the spider tournament, remember, spider tournament takes 2K. There is a drop rate, whatever they call it. There's the boosted drop rates right now. So if that's relevant to you and you wanted to use all 5K here, remember, Dungeon Divers takes 5K. You could. And campaign is less efficient, right? So you usually have to use double the energy in campaign for anything that you're not using. So if you use 2K here, you're thinking, oh, I'll do, 3K here. That would be 6,000 energy in campaign, roughly. Might be a little bit less than that. But so, you got some options here. The Fire Knight tournament overlaps this Dungeon Divers as well and doesn't overlap the next Dungeon Diver. So I'd actually recommend, getting all 2K in here. And that's going to be 4K that you get for free, which is really nice. And then that could literally be just 2K in campaign, or you could overshoot on that Spider tournament or the Fire Knight tournament if you like the Fire tournament drop rate thing that they do. Now, as far as gear enhancement event is concerned, with Spider happening early, I think this gear enhancement event is going to be pretty simple. Remember, it's 20 million silver, roughly. If you're a newer player and your account's a little bit lower, they may kind of prorate the points for this event. Sometimes they do. Last Fusion, they didn't. Not for me anyway, at like level 50. So maybe you'll have to be a lot lower. Maybe if you're like level 30 or 40 or something, it would be lower. But they didn't prorate it for me last time. Classic Arena Takedown, just be active. If you are in like low silver or below, you're going to have to use extra tokens. But if you are in high silver or gold, this is just be active. That's all it is. The Summon Rush we've already talked about. Champion Training Tournament. Remember the tournament, you get value out of ascensions and books as well. However, this window right here is CVC, and it is a PR CVC, I believe, this time. So double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's PR CVC. You may want to use up all your training here, during this champion training event. Get your books in it. It doesn't matter. Like you're not going to be getting points here for the champion training event with books, but you're going to get it for the CVC. So during this champion training tournament, however, you might have extra books or whatever, or extra ascensions. You want to go ahead and do that here. You could. This is a nice long champion training, so that's fine. Dragon Tournament is what goes into this Dungeon Divers, and it's the only dungeon, so you may want to overshoot and put all 5K in here. It only takes 2K. Again, this takes 5K. Or you could use a lot of campaign here in the Champion Training Tournament if you wanted to get a little bit, that way. Again, that's less energy efficient, but it's fine. Now, this is really nice opportunity to triple dip. Dragon is by far the easiest place to have a solo or a duo team. Clear stage 20. You can throw food in. You can get champion training points, get your dragon points, get your dungeon diver points all at the same time. Plus be earning your silver for the gear enhancement event number 2, which again is 20 million silver, as is the third one, 20 million silver. Okay, now the Ice Golem tournament goes into the Heroes Path. So make sure that that is overlapped. And again, this is 2K. I don't like overspending on the Ice Golem, but if they have a good, artifact set that they're boosting and you want to farm it, then you could over farm that. The problem here is this is the only thing that's really there for like double dip opportunities. But you could say, screw it, I'm going to go back and do more dungeon or fire, more dragon or more fire knight or more spider for the hero's path. Spider tends to be the best time investment. Like you can do spider faster than the other dungeons. So if you have a really quick spider farm, you could do thousands and thousands of, energy of spider really fast in this hero's path. And even though we have several days for the hero's path, you're going to want to do as many of your like dungeon diver points as you can early on. Now remember that for the 2 times weekend, this should be the 2 times shard pulling weekend. Right? Let me double check that. We just had that one, right? Yes, we just had a 2 times void shard event this past weekend. So that means this will be a progressive weekend. And then the 2 times shard event weekend will be this weekend. I expect it to be sacreds, but you never know because they've thrown off the sequence again. It won't be voids because we just had voids. So it could be ancients, could be sacreds. I think it's going to be sacreds, but I'm not 100% sure. So just be aware. Now, if it is a 2 times ancient, that's actually going to be a little bit less friendly because it's not a champion chase. It's a summon rush. It looks like, unless they just make it a champion chase, would be great. So also check the hero's path when the hero's path pops so you know exactly where the points are coming from. But I'm pretty sure it just says summon champions, not acquire champions. So that's sounds like a summon rush. So I'm hoping it's 2 times sacred shards because we're going to be pulling sacred shards anyway. That would be the best. That would be the best. Okay, and then classic arena takedown, you know, again, pretty easy. So all in total, we're looking at something like 13 sacreds. Again, 60 million silver. And then as far as the energy is concerned, the dungeon divers are, all the tournaments can be embedded in dungeon divers. So we're probably looking at somewhere in the vicinity of energy on maybe the lower side a little bit, unless you're really pushing it into the hero's path. So on the low end, you might be able to get away with 16k energy. On the high end, it could be as something, you know, as high as something like 28k, and it could be crazy because you could put 20,000 energy into a hero's path if you wanted. But you know, it's really up to you. So I think for those of you who are newer, kind of early game or mid game, don't worry about that. As long as you can generate the 16k energy over the course of this time period, which I think you should be fine to do. Like if we're basically starting on Tuesday, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 15, 14. You have 14 days. You have 14 days to generate 16,000 energy. So if you have, you know, 500 gems, you're all set. You're all set. But you have to be efficient. You have to be efficient. And you're going to be getting energy as rewards as well. So you're going to get extra energy. So this shouldn't be too bad in terms of energy. One thing to be aware of is make sure that you get your void potions for ascending Yuzan the Marooned. If you're going for the legendary, you want to get those out of the way because that only opens on Sundays, right? So you only have 2 shots. You only have 2 shots at void potions, right? So or whatever they're called, void potions. So make sure that you get them ahead of time. And probably you're going to want them for this champion training tournament because you're going to want to use those ascensions during that champion training tournament. Okay. All right. So I think that's everything. Hopefully I haven't missed anything. If I have, please let me know in the comments below. But there is your no-fail fusion plan. Good luck for those of you who choose to go for Lysanthair. And if you're just going for the consolation prize, well, that's going to be cool too. I hope maybe I can get him at some point because I think I'm going to go for Lysanthair on my main account. But I'd like this epic as well. Okay, that is it for this one. Thanks so much for hanging out. I have been Colred, and I will see you in another video soon.